Good morning and welcome on this hot, hazy 4th of July weekend, and smoky, unfortunately. My name is Joanne Jessen. I know your order of service says Carol Plumley is board host today, but Carol graciously switched with That's okay. Whether you are on Zoom or here in this church sanctuary, we are so glad you are with us this morning. No matter how old or how young you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, however you identify, and whomever you love, know you are welcome here. Our service today is being led by Sterling Pilette. Sterling is a longtime member of the UU Church of Reston. He was raised an American Baptist, but became a UU at the age of 28 in Utica, New York. After retirement in 2016, he turned his interest away from his career in the Defense Department and embraced new interests, the evolution of religion and the origins of mankind. He is a member of various committees in the church and enjoys sports, especially swimming, and hosting church events at his place on Lake Thoreau. Thank you, Sterling, for leading the service today. Music director Cynthia Young is off today, but she did plan the music for today's service. We are very happy to welcome a new guest accompanist, Maria Shamaisen. Marina is very talented. She's a very talented and award-winning pianist. She appears as a lecture recitalist at venues across the U.S., including Wolf Trap, the Strathmore, and the Carnegie Weill Hall in New York. Marina, thank you for joining us this morning and bringing beautiful music to our church. And we are also pleased to have Sarah Lott with us this morning. Sarah is a member of the church choir and graciously agreed to be our hymn leader for today's service. Thank you, Sarah. We do have a few announcements this morning. We are updating the church directory this summer so that we have a current version for our new settled minister on August 1st. We encourage you to have a new photo taken, especially if your most recent directory photo was taken some time ago. For the next few Sundays, Kathy DeHilianis will be taking photos for the directory. Please see Kathy before or after church if you would like to have your photo taken. And we are excited to share that orders are now open for UUCR t-shirts. The shirts will be approximately $25 and can be ordered through Friday, July 21st. The church will be distributed or delivered to UUCR in early August. Pick up a flyer in the foyer, and look at David Nemi's t-shirt, and you will see what you can look forward to. Please join us on Saturday, July 15th at 4 p.m. to bid a fond farewell to Reverend Scott Alexander. This farewell gathering will be hosted by the UUCR board and held the day before Reverend Scott's last service at UUCR. Please pick up a folder again in the foyer. It's the flyer with the picture of a bike on it. You can RSVP with the link by scanning the QR code. And we hope you'll all join us. And speaking of the board, this Sunday is the first Sunday of our new church year. And so we welcome a new president, Paul Okerson, and 3 new board members, Kat Hoagland, Megan Pitlock-Schmidt, and Joyce Parkin. So they will be our new board members, joining some of us who have been around a while. And now Paul Cohen has a special announcement.
get up here without tripping.
If you want, you can use that one.
I'm already here. Thanks, Joey. Okay, I want to talk a couple minutes about voice. When UUCR voted to adopt the 8th principle, as a church, we made a commitment to actively engage in the work of building the beloved community. Next Sunday, July 9th, we have an opportunity to deliver on that commitment. Voice, in coalition with the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police and the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association, will meet with Governor Youngkin at Mount Zion Baptist Church at 3 p.m. That's in Prince William County, to address the crisis affecting youth in Virginia and to gain Governor Youngkin's commitment to funding needed crisis response centers and other mental health needs for the youth. I think we all know that politicians pay attention to numbers. Members and friends of UUCR, by just showing up, will demonstrate our support for this very important need. At a planning meeting, we committed to having 14 or more members of and friends of UUCR show up. I certainly hope that more than 14 will attend. There's a sign-up sheet in the lobby. Please sign up and indicate if you would like to carpool. To get to Triangle, we estimate that if we leave here at 2 o'clock, we should be able to get to Triangle and get in there in time for really the warm-up, which I can assure you, having been to Mount Zion Baptist Church before, it's going to be a terrific choir and lots of gospel singing. And that in itself will make the trip worthwhile. So I hope to see as many of you as I can at the Voice Action. That'll be next Sunday.
Thank you, Paul. Now, let us center ourselves for worship. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me, and let us enter our time of worship together as we listen to this morning's prelude.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Sterling Pilette. Welcome to our church. On this 4th of July weekend Sunday, I wish to give opening words from the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, past president now of the Unitarian Universalist Association, or UUA. She said, "It's time for decision makers to recognize that progressive individuals of faith exist and cannot be ignored as a social and political force. The next several years will see huge budget and spending battles that will require our progressive faith voices to remind legislators that many of these are moral deliberations. We reflect on what our faith teaches and promises and how that applies to federal matters. Unitarian Universalists are very outspoken regarding our beliefs, and we consider ourselves a vital, progressive, spiritual, and religious movement. We are a faith that centers on covenant, which is our promises to each other and the world. We are compelled not only to be vocal, but to put actions behind our beliefs. This practice reflects our deeply held spiritual principle of the inherent worth and dignity of all people and our commitment to working for justice.
Morning. Our opening hymn is number 300, With Heart and Mind. The words are printed in your order of service, or of course you can use the hymnal. If you're joining us on Zoom, the words will be in your chat box, and we hope you'll sing along. Here in the congregation, please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing number 300, With Heart and Mind. With heart and mind and voice and hand, may we this time and place transcend to make our purpose understood. A mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in age and youth, to choose a path no threat impedes, wherever light of conscience leads. Our martyrs died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart whose search makes love the spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside.
Good morning. My name's Leslie Tyson. I'm your worship associate this morning. For our chalice lighting words, I've selected words from William Sinkford that speak very much to this particular Sunday. We are a gentle and generous people, but let us not forget our anger. May it fuel not only our commitment to compassion, but also our commitment to make fundamental changes. Our vision of the beloved community must stand against a vision that would allow the privilege of a few to be accepted as just and even holy. Our religious vision must again and again ask, who is my neighbor? And strive always to include more and more of us. As we intone the words that gave birth to this nation, we the people, we are and we should be both a gentle and an angry people. Sarah?
UCR, we have a tradition of singing our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this church. If you're joining us on Zoom, the words will be in your chat box, and we invite you to sing with us. Here in the sanctuary, we'll remain seated. If you're visiting us this morning for the first time, we hope you will accept this song as our blessing to you.
Now is the time in our service when we share our joys and concerns, that no one ever has to bear them alone. If you are joining us remotely this morning, you may wish to light a real or virtual candle wherever you are to mark what is in your heart. As members of the in-person congregation here at UUCR, place stones in the water bowl in the sanctuary. If those of you at home would like to share what is in your heart today with the congregation chat on the screen, please be aware this does become public. Those at home may also read and respond to the joys and concerns shared in the chat, and then enter your own time of reflection and prayer as we listen to Marina play this morning. Let us be one in prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates our creation, we are grateful for this community that is with us in both times of joy and sorrow. We hold in our hearts this morning all who are facing any hardship or difficulty, those who are grieving, facing illness or disability of friends and loved ones. We also hold in our hearts those who are celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, and many other joys that come with summer. Whether shared this morning or held silently in our hearts, may our joys be multiplied in community, and may all gathered here find comfort and calm.
As a self-funded church, UUCR relies on the generosity of its members and friends to fund daily operations and to ensure that the church and its resources are here for us and for others, now and in the future. Pledges support our worship and music programs, our religious education program, programs for members and friends, community outreach, and connections to Unitarian Universalism. We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation to the collection plate, if you are here in the sanctuary, or at the link on the slide and in the chat box. Thank you for your generosity and support of our beloved spiritual home.
We are living in a time of hate groups, racism, voter suppression, conspiracy theories, book bannings, attacks on reproductive health care, attacks on LGBTQ rights, intentional disinformation, et cetera, all threats to our democracy. I attribute a lot of this to folks that have a particular conservative mindset, which expresses itself in multiple ways. Some wear hats labeled "Make America Great Again," MAGA for short. Is this news to anybody out there? I'll bet some of you thought that MAGA hats were only red. I think I better take this hat off before the ushers see me out the door. It didn't fit right anyway. Whoever wore that hat has a big head. A lot of folks that have a conservative mindset are behind the idea that the good old USA should become a Christian nation ruled by ancient biblical principles. I am going to provide examples of ancient biblical principles which form the basis of early Christianity, which I consider problematic. This has come to a head in the formulations of right-wing Christianity into Christian nationalism. That's right, Christian nationalism. You have heard and read about it. It's the idea that this nation is best governed using Christian principles as defined by an ancient worldview. I hope to show you this morning that this ancient worldview is not the best knowledge base to come up with pragmatic solutions to modern issues. We didn't get to this place as a nation overnight. It took decades by religious right organizers that have brought us to where we are now. You can see in that slide, the demonstrators on the mall with the large cross make a poignant point. I wasn't there to interview these people, but I can assume that some of them are MAGA people. Well, I'm going to assume that they're not Unitarian Universalists. Do you see the MAGA hat under the crossbeam? I hear people asking, how can there be so many MAGA people in this nation, and how can they think the way they think? Well, there's a slew of reasons, but one significant reason is that many of them are, in fact, Christian nationalists or sympathizers. Why is it that many of these Christian nationalists appear to be against what we consider these pragmatic solutions to issues of the day? It goes back to my contention that not all ancient biblical beliefs from which Christianity evolved is a good guide to solve modern issues of today. Why do I say this? Let me set the stage. Christianity evolved out of a far different worldview than what we have today. For example, they believed in such things as that sickness and infirmity was the product of offending God in some way, such as not keeping sacred holy days, not tithing properly, not obeying commandments, etc. They also believed that mental illness was due to demonic possession. Natural disasters were due to God's wrath in punishing vast numbers of mankind for disobedience. There was no such thing as germ theory, public health, election integrity, gay marriage, climate change, civil rights, environmental stewardship, women's rights, etc., etc. These are modern day developments. None of these were known at the time. As I explained in a previous sermon I gave in this church entitled My Search for God, this old worldview was immersed in the spirit world in a way most of us would not recognize or understand today. For example, the following were regarded as routine part of life: angels, visitations, apparitions, supernatural revelations, out-of-body experiences, symbolism, superstition, storytelling, and wisdom teachings were written into the Bible, the goal of which was not to be an historically accurate document per se, but to convey religious truth stories and wisdom literature that complemented the belief system of the day. Contrast that with today, in which religious writings are couched in the worldview which accepts few of these ancient beliefs as routine. You don't have people reported today of being raised from the dead like you had in the ancient worldview. If you did hear that today, wouldn't that be breaking news on all channels yet? You have to ask yourself, since Christian doctrine evolved out of that ancient worldview we just described, how can all of it automatically be the best guide for addressing and solving moral, modern, and ethical issues? I'll answer that question. It can't. I will show you that some of the Christian church, not all, but enough to make a difference, a big difference, they are unable to break out of certain underlying ancient beliefs that hinder these solutions. How am I going to back up that statement? This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to report what I have personally learned from folks that I believe to be Christian nationalists. and explain some of their ways of thinking, which lead to thought and voting decisions that we all have trouble figuring out, well, why did they vote that way and how can they think that way? Then later, I'm going to contrast that with the way Unitarian Universalists think and why. I will give examples of ancient beliefs that I believe Christian nationalists harbor that is the underlying bedrock of their theology, which are not just counterproductive, but downright dangerous. Are you ready to take this ride with me? Yes. Okay, let's go. Example 1. Why do Christian nationalists belittle the idea that the climate needs fixing and are climate deniers? Because what I have observed in their conservative mindset is the ancient belief that the climate is in God's hands and to think that we, mankind, can override the natural cyclical patterns of climate is a fool's errand. Does this anti-science thinking hinder solutions to our legitimate climate crisis? Can this thinking eventually become dangerous? I think yes. Example 2, why are so many Christian nationalists opposed to gays and the LGBTQ movement? Because what I have observed in the conservative mindset of my friends is the ancient belief that the sex orientation of a person is defined at birth and God never makes a mistake. So how can a person question their sexuality in any capacity, let alone change their biological sex? Unfortunately, since most do not know LGBTQ people personally, LGBTQ people are the unknown other. And they are unknown to them. I appeal to our conservative friends. Allow yourself to meet and get to know LGBTQ people, then let us know what you think. Meanwhile, do you think the ancient belief that drove this discrimination is counterproductive, that can only cause pain and anguish? I think yes. Example 3, why are most Christian nationalists vehemently opposed to abortion and in some cases contraception? Because what I have observed in the conservative mindset is the ancient belief that human conception is regarded as natural law, and when conception happens, a unique human being is created, and there is no justification to terminate that life. I appeal to my conservative friends. Doesn't this ancient belief applied against abortion violate a person's moral boundary? The idea that a politician can have the audacity to think their religious belief can override the religious belief or no religious belief of another human being on such a personal issue is breathtaking. How they don't seem to be aware that such a misguided policy for such a deeply personal decision can foster moral violence, such as trying to force, thankfully unsuccessfully, a 10-year-old rape victim to have to go to term. We ask our friends, don't you see where this ancient belief can be maddeningly cruel? The answer is yes. I would also like to point out, as a footnote, that throughout history, the Christian church has not always protected life, and in fact, has been responsible for the killing of hundreds of thousands of people, including children and the unborn. I wonder, could it be that this modern times obsession with protecting the unborn is an attempt for the church to gain some sort of redemption for past heinous crimes? Just asking. Example 4, why are so many Christian nationalists anti-vaxxers? Because they obsess over perceived population control issues. The ancient belief is to be suspicious of population control, so when the CDC, WHO says that everybody should have a COVID shot, it's perceived that the government or some sort of worldwide cabal is attempting to mark and possibly control people by some nefarious method. The biblical book of Revelations talks about the mark of the beast. For those anti-vaxxers that fear the mark of the beast, they think it could be the vaccine itself containing programmable microchips. Now, as a footnote, some scholars say that the biblical book of Revelations was written to predict cataclysmic events in their current age, not thousands of years in the future. In fact, cataclysmic events did occur during their current age, including volcanic destruction, catastrophic fires, the destruction of the Jewish state and temple. Should we kindly ask our anti-vaxxer friends to consider the possibility that anti-vaccine ravings are dangerous misinformation that at least endangers public health and puts seniors and children at risk? I think yes. Why are so many Christian nationalists supporters of an anointed one? Because the ancient belief is that once an anointed one is identified, that person has unquestioned authority to advance God's agenda. You can see in the slide some of the people who decided who the anointed one is. I can name many of these influential pastors and televangelists. Yes, the anointed one is authoritarian, and they agree that the anointed one is not perfect and appears to be cruel at times, such as separating children from parents. But King David was not perfect either, and God still loved him. So why does the anointed one garner such amazing loyalty? I am convinced it's not that his followers want someone who really believes what they believe. No. What they want is someone who would smite their enemies with maximum effect in the same way God smote the Egyptians and led the Israelites to escape bondage. If my conclusion is true, is this an admirable reason to give loyalty to someone? I think not. Example 6. Why do Christian nationalists believe that prayer is the solution to gun violence? Because the ancient belief is that a supernatural mythical entity called Satan and his demons run rampant throughout the world, causing sin and evil. So the best way to defeat this is what they call the enemy, is by spiritual warfare, in which prayer elicits supernatural divine intervention. The Washington Post reported on a Texas congressman in May 5th, 2023, that stated that prayer was the most important way to combat mass slayings. You know that after a mass slaying, the US Congress typically seeks to ameliorate the problem with thoughts and prayers. Is this a dangerous way to combat mass slayings? I think yes. Example 7. Are we ready for another example? Example 7, okay. Why do so many Christian nationalists place importance on the ancient biblical principles? Because the ancient belief from the Jewish apocalyptic tradition is that the signs are here, that the end times are coming upon us. The thinking is that converting the United States into a Christian theocracy will save more people to prepare for a heavenly reward. Shall we encourage our conservative friends to face reality and simply accept the fact that probably 2/3 of the people of the United States do not accept their doomsday prophecy? I think yes. Example 8. Why do many Christian nationalists support the Second Amendment and AR-15 ownership, even in the face of gun violence and mass killings? Well, it's because in ancient times, Christians were persecuted, so gun ownership is just the modern way to protect one's family. I will read what is on the sanctuary screen, which says, "Blessed be the rock, blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle." The implication here, of course, is hands to hold the gun and fingers to pull the trigger. The real Psalms 144:1 says, "Praise the Lord, my protector. He trains me for battle and prepares me for war." On the TV show of evangelist Jimmy Swaggart, gun ownership is regarded as biblical because the gun is merely a modern projection of the sword and spear. I have asked the question of some conservative friends, when you really look honestly, you'll really look into yourself and address your own accountability. Do you really think you are persecuted? Or is this just a false paranoia and naked act of intimidation and control? Is this ancient belief dangerous? I think yes. Example 9, and this is the last one. There are more, but we have a certain amount of time limit here. Example 9, why are some Christian nationalists racist, whether they admit it or not? I sense the background of this is originally tied to the ancient beliefs surrounding slavery. The Bible fails to record any condemnation of slavery, and in fact, the Bible itself seems to be an owner's manual for how to be a good slaveholder. Indeed, during the Civil War, Southern Christians fought the institution of slavery was ordained by God himself. This was regarded as biblical truth. What ancient belief may have spawned this kind of thinking? Well, Noah's son Ham was cursed and sent away from God's legitimate people. Although the idea has been questioned, some adherents still believe that Ham's descendants represented people of color. Fast forward to today, and the curse manifests itself in the denial of people of color of full benefits and rights. So we see that this negative ancient biblical belief seeps into the MAGA culture and metastasizes, contributing to an attitude of white supremacy. The degree of systemic racism in this country remains ugly. So one has to ask our conservative friends, shouldn't we reject ancient beliefs such as these in today's modern world? I think yes. We have just reviewed examples of ancient beliefs that I believe lead to problematic thinking on the part of Christian nationalists. There are more examples, but we're going to end there and talk about talking to actually Christian nationalists. If you have a chance to talk to a Christian nationalist, innocently ask them, to what extent biblical principles are the basis of their belief? In a spirit of give and take, you can share what you have learned this morning, which may raise serious questions about what they believe. Ask them the last time they heard about exorcism being used to cure mental illness. Then ask them if Medicare paid the bill. All right, a little dark humor. Of course, not all believe in these ancient beliefs with the same intensity, but they represent, they are either in the heads of significant portion of these people or the original basis for the belief. These kinds of examples are the basis of the culture war issues that continue to divide this nation. Now, here's a kicker. Typically, right-wing Christians believe that a God-centered solution is the right solution. Okay, fine. But what does that mean? It means that God's law comes first, even before pragmatic considerations. Oh, yes. Well, they do believe the end justifies the means. Now, the big question is, what is God's law? Okay, you saw the slide of the anointed one prior. The anointed one, those are the people, among the people, that are ready to give us those God-centered solutions to impose their will on the rest of us. They have actually been successful in imposing their will already on various issues via Supreme Court rulings and in state legislatures. They couldn't impose their will on us in the treatment of gays in this country, so they are going to other countries. In Ghana, for example, right-wing Christians are convincing the government of Ghana to pass a law making it a crime to be gay in public upon the punishment of death. More proof that some of these ancient theological beliefs are not only backward, but dangerous. Unfortunately, some right-wing Christian leadership appears not to want to acknowledge the damage, but are going in the opposite direction. The organization Pathway to Victory, that is already ready to claim success and has published a book called America is a Christian Nation. Others want to dig in their heels and propagate it to future generations. According to a right-wing Christian homeschooling movement called Homeschool Legal Defense Association, HSLDA, homeschooling is promoted now as a way of life to become prevalent in the future. They consider rightly educated children to grow into what the founder Michael Ferris calls the Joshua generation. The goal of the Joshua generation is to seek political power and cultural influence to reshape America according to biblical truths. They are using these biblical truths as a conscious rejection of modern ideas in such fields as biology, history, gender equality, science, and the role of religion in American government. An example of anti-science thinking is they trivialize the teaching of evolution to their children as merely a man-made theory, which means they have no understanding of what science is or what the scientific method is all about. By the way, their headquarters is just down the road in Percival on Route 7. Shall we do a field trip there someday? However, on a positive note, a certain Christian group that I'm aware of is also looking at this issue of ancient theology. This group is called progressivechristianity.com. I'm sorry, progressivechristianity.org. And they are looking into this idea of some ancient theology being a problem. In fact, they call it bad theology, which they claim is propping up these right-wing politicians. You heard it right. They called it bad theology. Now, I didn't come up with that term bad. That's their term. Although I have no problem, with that word. Now, how are they combating bad theology? They are forging partnerships with like-minded organizations to create a strong movement promoting what they call progressive Christian theology. We UUs are like-minded with this movement, as we are outspoken in calling out such moral deliberations. Obviously, much knowledge and wisdom has come from the past, but let's be honest. Some restrictions apply, and you've seen that on various places. Some restrictions apply. This is a case study of why UUs do not automatically believe lock, stock, and barrel in religious beliefs that were created long ago as irrefutable for all time. UUs believe in the freedom of conscience and the independent search for truth. These precepts were espoused by Servetus, considered the first Unitarian martyr in 1553, who had been persecuted by both the Calvinist Protestant Church and the Roman Catholic Church. Servetus knew what I'm going to call the tyranny of a religious bureaucratic hierarchy, one that dictates what and how to think religiously in every aspect of life. Although UUism evolved out of the Judeo-Christian tradition, UUs have rejected the restrictive Christian church hierarchy that demands fealty to those ancient religions, traditions. From the very beginning of Christianity, a vast church hierarchy has focused on maintaining its power and control by applying a continuous proliferation of fixed rites, rituals, beliefs, and dogma. Allowing change to address modern issues would threaten that power structure hierarchy, and for the most part is not tolerated. This is important to use because UU congregations and other progressive congregations do not have a church hierarchy that would stifle a free and creative interchange of ideas. In fact, the Reverend Walter Roll Jones Jr., a UU parish minister now retired, said about Unitarian Universalism, apart from Quakers and their time-honored preference for consensus, it is unlikely that the history of religion provides any comparable example of such intentional and committed use of inclusive, non-hierarchical processes to produce guiding principles. Each individual UU church has autonomy, but incredibly, most congregations subscribe pretty much to the same modern-day philosophies and understandings. UUs can appreciate rites and rituals of ancient beliefs, but they do not allow these to hinder progress in resolving modern-day issues. What distinguishes UUs is that our covenant principles are negotiated and revised periodically among our members. This we do during our general assemblies, as we have just experienced. In conclusion, many of us have left our birth religion for various reasons, but for some of us, the mere thought of a church hierarchy telling us what to do would foster an open rebellion. I can tell you right now, the UU Association is not a church hierarchy, as I have discussed this morning. We as a congregation will continue to gain new members for many reasons, but one is knowing that UUs have the freedom to appreciate the wisdom of all the world's religions, but using our own minds to determine our own personal theology and path to redemption. That, my friends, is why the nuns, yes, the nuns, those who mark on the census form no religious affiliation, would consider UUism. Some of those nuns that are interested in a religious and spiritual home that is democratically oriented will naturally gravitate to UUism if we UUs take the time to make them aware of what we have to offer. Yes, to take the time to make them aware of what we have to offer. May we go out into the world and do the best job we can to take the time to make them aware of what we have to offer. Amen and blessed be.
Thank you, Sterling, for sharing with us today. Our closing hymn is number 168, One More Step. The words are printed in your order of service or in the hymnal. If you're joining us on Zoom, the words are going to be in your chat box, and hope will sing along with us. Here in the congregation, please rise and body your spirit as we sing number 168, One More Step. One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
This morning, we exposed examples of ancient beliefs stemming from early Christianity that have not evolved, which deny followers the freedom to critically discern constructive solutions to modern day issues. On the other hand, the theology and principles of liberal progressive religions, such as Unitarian Universalism, have a living tradition to address modern day issues with evolved modern theology. May we be the liberal progressive religion that shines the light of religious literacy within our community, nation, and world. Amen.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry forth in our hearts until we are together again.
Section from our hymnal, the teal hymnal, number 1058, Be Ours a Religion. Cynthia told me that we sang this together as a benediction just a couple weeks ago, so we hope that the tune and words are a bit familiar. Because it's fairly short, we're going to sing it through 2 times. And those of you joining in Zoom, the words are going to be in the chat box, and you're warmly invited to join us. You're welcome to remain seated for the benediction. Let's sing together, We Are as a Religion, 1058. We are a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual works of love. We are a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual works of love.
We invite our congregants attending on Zoom to join us for our virtual Greet Your Neighbor coffee hour today to discuss the theme and enjoy fellowship with other congregants. The link is in the chat box and will be on a forthcoming slide. We hope you will also use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to leave a message about your appreciation for today's worship service. Those here in person are invited to join us for coffee or tea and fellowship and a snack out in the foyer. We are going to leave the chairs set up as they were at the beginning of the service, so please do not stack the chairs. And have a good day.